Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we crack open the source material you provided and give you the high-level insights, the surprising anecdotes, and the critical knowledge you need to be instantly well-informed. Today, we are tackling one of the most fundamental and I think fascinating questions out there. Why do we buy what we buy?
It really is the central puzzle of commerce, isn't it? Most of us, we walk around believing our choices, from toothpaste to cars, are based on these completely rational calculations.
We think we're logical actors,
Yeah.
spreadsheets and pros and cons lists.
Exactly. But our sources, they reveal this world that's just dictated by powerful unseen influences, deep-seated psychology, and these cognitive shortcuts that are constantly guiding our wallets. And usually we don't even realize the mechanisms are at play.
That is so true. We think our decision process is this clean, linear thing, but it's anything but. So our mission today is a deep dive into the 4 core questions that govern consumer choice. We're going to move from the outside in. First, we're going to look at the external lenses. How do our cultural, social, and personal characteristics influence us before we even, think about buying something?
Then second, we'll move into the core psychological processes, sort of the inner engine of motivation, perception, learning, and memory that filter and shape every single piece of information we get.
And after that, we'll analyze the 5-stage model, which is the textbook blueprint for how rational decisions are supposed to be made.
Which leads to the best part.
Oh, absolutely. Section 4, that's where we get into the reality of how we actually operate. We'll look at the revolutionary field of behavioral economics and all the fascinating, predictable ways we deviate from that clean, rational path.
You should think of this deep dive as putting on X-ray goggles. You, the listener, are exposed to something like over 1,500 brand communications every single day.
1,500, that's an incredible number.
It is. So we're giving you a 360-degree view of how your environment, your brain chemistry, and your own mental shortcuts process that.
Curiosity's sake, but for anyone trying to succeed in business, the aim of marketing is deceptively simple. Meet and satisfy your target customers' needs and wants better than the competition.
And to do that, you absolutely have to know how consumers think, feel, and act. You just have to.
We can see the power of that right from the start with a classic example, Lego.
Lego.
Yeah.
They were, in many ways, one of the first truly mass customized brands. I mean, every child who used the basic blocks built a unique creation. Massive creative freedom.
But our sources really highlight that even that level of success doesn't make you immune to mistakes. At one point, Lego strayed pretty significantly from its core identity.
They really did. They started trying to be this sprawling global lifestyle brand.
What does that even mean for a toy company?
Well, they launched theme parks, lines of clothing, video games, watches, even these craft sets called Clickets, specifically designed to try and attract girls, which was a market they hadn't really dominated.
And in doing so, they took their eye off the ball.
Completely. They took their focus off their most loyal, lucrative, and frankly influential segment, the 5 to 9-year-old boy. They neglected the core building block experience.
And the cost was huge, right? Their profits just plummeted.
They did. The market got oversaturated with all these peripheral products that just diluted the brand's power and confused people.
So their recovery is the real lesson here.
Absolutely. It's a perfect modern lesson in staying close to the customer. They streamlined everything, re-emphasized the core building business, and crucially, they revamped their entire organization to prioritize listening. They started actively supporting customer communities.
Tapping into them for ideas.
For co-creation, yeah. They created this thing called Lego Design by Emmy, a platform that lets devoted customers design, share, and even buy their own custom products using downloadable software.
That's incredible. So they're essentially turning their most enthusiastic fans into unpaid product developers.
Exactly. It just shows the profound value in knowing exactly who your loyal customers are, giving them a voice, and integrating their passion directly into your business model.
That sets the stage perfectly. Okay, let's unpack this entire journey into the consumer's mind, starting with the broadest influences possible. This is section 1, the external lenses.
And our sources categorize these external forces into 3 main buckets: cultural, social, and personal factors. And critically, the cultural factors are said to exert the broadest and deepest influence.
Let's start there then.
Right, so culture it's the fundamental invisible determinant of a person's wants and behavior. It's what you absorb just by existing in a society.
So, like, a child growing up in the U.S. is constantly exposed to core values like achievement, individualism, efficiency, progress.
Material comfort, things like that. And these are absorbed through family, school, media. It's everywhere.
And these foundational values, they determine whether an entire product category is even seen as necessary or desirable in the first place.
For sure. I mean, what's considered a basic ritual in one country, say? The emphasis on communal dining in certain East Asian cultures might not even register in another. You just can't assume that basic needs or desires translate one-to-one across the globe.
Right. And then within that big overarching culture, you have subcultures.
Yes, exactly. These are smaller groups defined by nationalities, religions, racial groups, or even just geographic regions, and they provide a more specific layer of identification. They share distinct values based on their shared background.
And that's the opportunity for marketers, isn't it?
It is. When these subcultures become large and affluent enough, you think of the vast and growing influence of Hispanic Americans or Asian Americans in the U.S., companies start designing specialized, tailored marketing programs just for them.
Because a generic message just won't resonate.
It won't. And then there's the pervasive influence of social class.
This one can be a bit tricky to talk about.
It can, but the material we looked at breaks it down as these relatively homogeneous and enduring hierarchical divisions in society. The members share similar values, interests, and behavior. It's not just about money, it's about shared taste and worldview.
The classic model has 7 levels, right? From lower lowers to upper uppers. What's important for us is how class dictates preferences.
And it does, in really distinct ways. Areas like clothing, home furnishings, leisure activities, cars. You see clear preferences.
It even dictates how you get your information.
That's a key insight for advertisers. Upper-class consumers might prefer niche magazines, classic literature, independent journalism. Lower-class consumers might lean toward reality shows, sports, or specific social media platforms.
So the language you use, the tone, the setting of an ad, all of it has to ring true to that specific social class, or the message just fails immediately.
It falls flat. Absolutely. Yeah. Hashtag 1.2 social group dynamics.
Okay, so moving from that big structural lens of culture, we can zoom in a bit to social factors, specifically group dynamics, not just who we are, but who we hang out with.
We are constantly affected by reference groups. These are all the groups that have a direct or indirect influence on our attitudes or behavior.
And we can break those down, right?
We can. You have primary groups, which are those with continuous informal interaction. So family, friends, coworkers. They're highly influential because of the close-knit relationship.
And then secondary groups.
Those are more formal, require less continuous interaction. Think professional associations, clubs, religious organizations.
And the way they influence us is, it's pretty powerful. They expose us to new behaviors and lifestyles. They shape our self-concept.
And they create this immense, often unspoken pressure for conformity. You buy certain clothes because your friend group buys them. It's as simple as that sometimes.
And what about the groups we don't belong to?
They're influential too. You have aspirational groups, which are the groups we hope to join someday. So we buy products that signal that membership.
And the opposite of that.
Dissociative groups, whose values or behavior we actively reject. So we actively avoid certain brands or styles associated with them. Marketers love to use imagery of aspirational groups to motivate a purchase.
So if that group influence is strong, marketers have to figure out how to reach the opinion leaders.
Yes, the opinion leaders. These are the highly confident, socially active people who offer informal advice about specific products, which brand is best, where to shop, that sort of thing. They're often the early adopters.
They're basically the gatekeepers of cool.
Especially in volatile, fickle markets like youth fashion or tech, you can't just advertise. You have to influence the influencer.
Which brings us to a fantastic deep dive example. Hot topic. They appeal directly to that fashion-conscious youth market, and they use music as their main tool to monitor these opinion leaders.
Their entire operating premise is literally everything about the music. They have to know what's coming next months before it hits the mainstream.
So how do they do it?
Well, they're staffers, and this is everyone from the CEO down to the salespeople, 80% of whom are famously under 25. They regularly attend concerts by up-and-coming bands. They are physically scouting what styles and trends are emerging from the grassroots.
And they design their stores to match that vibe.
They do. The stores are designed to feel less like a shop and more like an authentic campus student center or a local music venue. Loud alternative music, dark walls, bulletin boards with concert flyers. They even host free acoustic shows.
So they're creating an authentic hub for the subculture they serve.
Precisely. And by staying this close to the pulse, they can catch a trend, design a product, and get it into stores in just 6 to 8 weeks.
Which is months faster than traditional competitors.
Months. It shows that for certain segments, understanding and leveraging these grassroots opinion leaders isn't just a marketing tactic, it is the entire business model. Hashtag tag 1.3, the role of family in shifting gender dynamics.
Continuing on that social journey, the family is still the most important consumer buying organization in society. Its influence starts at birth.
And there are two key types of family in a buyer's life. You've got the family of orientation, that's your parents and siblings, who give you deep-seated values like self-worth, ambition, religion.
And the family of procreation.
Your spouse and children. They directly influence your everyday transactional buying behavior.
The source material had a remarkable statistic that just illustrates the power of that family of orientation.
Oh, the auto insurance one. Yeah, almost 40% of families have auto insurance with the same company as the husband's parents.
Yeah, that decision that's often subconscious, right? Driven by this deep-seated feeling of trust and legacy passed down through decades. It's an incredibly powerful influence. It's very hard for a competitor to break.
Absolutely. But purchasing roles are constantly changing, especially with gender. Traditionally, the wife was the main purchasing agent for food, household stuff, basic clothing.
But today, joint decision-making is the standard for expensive things. Cars, housing, financial planning, vacations.
And marketers have to recognize the subtle but really significant gender differences in how we respond to communication styles.
What does the research show there?
Consistently, that women tend to value connections and relationships, processing information more holistically. Men, on the other hand, relate more directly to competition, status, and place a high priority on action and specific, detailed facts.
And a perfect example of marketing success based on that insight is the Sherwin-Williams Dutch Boy Twist and Pour paint can.
Yes. They targeted the new, easier-to-open, less messy design specifically at women because they recognized that the traditional metal can was a huge source of frustration.
And even though the new product was priced $2 higher.
$2 higher for the exact same paint. The new design helped the company triple its revenue. It wasn't about the paint quality, it was about the packaging convenience, respecting the time constraints and mess avoidance desires of the female purchaser. It sold a feeling of control.
And we can't overlook the ever-increasing influence of children and teens. That group spends over $120 billion a year and wields significant influence on family purchases.
They're truly co-purchasers. And the sources distinguish between two types of influence. You have direct influence, which is the overt request, I want to go to McDonald's.
And then indirect influence.
Which is more subtle. It's when parents know their children's preferences without ever being asked. I think the kids would want to go to McDonald's, so we'll go there.
This influence starts incredibly early. It's kind of astonishing. Children can recognize brands and logos by age 2.
By 6 or 7, they can distinguish between ads and regular TV. By 7 or 8, they understand the persuasive intent behind the ads.
And by 9 or 10, they can actually perceive discrepancies between the message and the product's performance. So marketers are zeroing in on them at younger and younger ages.
Constantly reinforcing those early associations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Hashtag tag 1.4 personal characteristics.
Okay, finally, within these external factors, we get to personal characteristics. This includes everything from the role and status a person holds to their age and life cycle stage.
Right, and people consistently choose products that reflect their actual or desired status.
And the shifting demographics in the U.S. are huge here. The traditional nuclear family is a much smaller percentage of households now.
It is. The average household size in 2008 was just 2.6 people, more single-person households, more non-traditional living arrangements.
But more interesting than just age are the psychological life cycle stages or critical transitions.
Like marriage, divorce, a first job, a first child, moving. These moments disrupt routine and create urgent new needs.
I want to pause here for a second. Targeting people during a divorce or a job loss. That seems intensely personal. Isn't there a risk of alienating people by targeting them at such a vulnerable moment?
That's a fair point, but it reflects a crucial reality. Needs are highest when life is changing. If you're newly divorced, you have urgent needs for services lawyers, financial planners, maybe new housing. The targeting isn't about exploiting vulnerability, but about being the first, most relevant solution when a person knows they need help but doesn't know where to start.
That reframes it. And these markets can be incredibly valuable. Take newlyweds. They spend about $70 billion in their first year.
And they buy more in the first 6 months than an established household spends in 5 years.
So marketers like P&G actively target them. They use these newlywed kits, often distributed when couples apply for a marriage license.
Because those names are, as one executive noted, like pure gold. You're capturing customers right at the moment they form new purchasing habits.
And of course, occupation and economic circumstances are foundational. Your product choice is obviously affected by your income, your savings, your debt.
And just your overall attitude towards spending. During a downturn, luxury brands become vulnerable, and marketers have to be ready to redesign or reposition.
The recession saw the successful expansion of the Snap Fitness franchise, which is a great case study in this.
They thrived. They deliberately offered a low-cost, no-frills model,
Yeah.
$35 a month, easy cancellations, small gyms, limited amenities.
They took away everything unnecessary to cut the price.
Exactly. And they identified their sweet spot perfectly. Married 35 to 55-year-olds with kids who are time-constrained and live nearby. They needed convenience and extreme affordability.
Next up is personality and self-concept. Personality is that set of traits that lead to consistent responses. But it's the concept of brand personality that really ties into consumer choice.
Brand personality is the mix of human traits we attribute to a brand. Stanford's Jennifer Aker identified 5 key traits that brands project.
Right. There's sincerity, like Campbell's Soup wholesome, down to earth.
Excitement, like MTV Daring, spirited. Competence, like CNN Reliable, successful.
Sophistication, like Tiffany's. And ruggedness, like Levi's or Jeep.
And the core theory is that consumers gravitate toward brands whose personality matches their own, or maybe the personality they wish they had.
And this self-concept idea is pretty nuanced. It has 3 layers.
Right. You might choose a brand matching your actual self-concept, how you see yourself now, your ideal self-concept, how you wish you saw yourself, or even other self-concept, how you think others see you.
The Joie de Vivre boutique hotel chain in San Francisco is a master of this. Instead of standard corporate branding, each property's theme is loosely based on a popular magazine.
So each hotel gets a distinct personality. The Phoenix Hotel, for example, is represented by Rolling Stone magazine and is described as adventurous, hip, irreverent, funky, and young at heart.
And they market heavily to guests whose personalities align with that specific vibe.
They even had an online personality matchmaker to pair guests with the right hotels. It's a very careful orchestration of the brand experience.
We're almost through the external factors, but we need to touch on lifestyle and values. A lifestyle is a person's pattern of living their activities, interests, opinions.
And marketers are obsessed with finding these lifestyle groups because they're far more predictive of behavior than simple demographics.
The LOHAS segment is a massive modern example of this.
LOHAS, lifestyles of health and sustainability. This group worries about the environment, prioritizes sustainable products, and spends heavily on personal health.
And this is not a niche movement anymore. It represents about 19% of U.S. adults, that's 41 million people, and it's an estimated $209 billion market.
It's huge. Organic food, hybrid vehicles, yoga retreats, alternative medicine. That's them.
What's interesting is the contradiction there. They are dedicated to sustainability, but they are also highly skeptical of greenwashing.
They require authenticity and transparency, and that makes marketing to them a challenge. They demand high-quality, sustainable options, but they often balk at the higher prices that come with ethical sourcing.
So a company has to justify its price increase while being completely transparent about its supply chain, or the LOHAS consumer will just assume it's a cynical markup.
It's a tough balance. You have to provide both the idealism and the value.
And lifestyles are also critically shaped by whether consumers are money-constrained or time-constrained.
A huge distinction. Walmart is the champion of the money-constrained consumer. Everyday low prices.
While the time-famine consumer is prone to multitasking and values time more than money, they seek speed and convenience.
But interestingly, in certain categories like food, even time-constrained consumers still want some involvement. They don't want to feel completely passive.
Which perfectly explains the continued relevance of Hamburger Helper.
It does. It was launched in tough economic times in 1971 to stretch meat into a family meal. You'd think it would be obsolete now.
But market researchers found their target segment still prefers about 15 minutes of cooking and using one pot.
They want to feel good about preparing the meal. They want that feeling of involvement, not just the speed of a microwave dinner. So by continuously introducing new flavors while keeping that 15-minute sweet spot, the brand saw a significant sales rise, even during the 2009 recession.
That's a powerful lesson. And underpinning all of this are core values, the deep abstract beliefs that drive our attitudes and behavior.
So now that we've established all these external lenses, let's transition into section 2, the inner engine. This is where the stimuli from the outside world hits the consumer's consciousness and gets filtered.
Exactly. This is the classic stimulus response model. Marketing stimuli, product, price, distribution, communications, and environmental stimuli, economic, political, all enter our brains.
And inside, they interact with our internal psychology, motivation, perception, learning, and memory. That complex interaction determines the final purchase decision.
Okay, let's start with motivation. A need becomes a motive when it's aroused to a sufficient intensity to drive us to act.
Right. And needs can be biogenic, so physiological, like hunger or thirst, or psychogenic, which are psychological needs for recognition, esteem, belonging.
We have three classic theories here. First, Freud's theory, which assumes that the forces shaping our behavior are largely unconscious.
So consumers react not just to the stated capabilities of a product, but to less conscious cues, the shape of the packaging, the color, the weight of the product, the feel of material.
And this is why researchers use techniques like laddering.
Yes, to trace instrumental motives like I want a durable phone, to deeper terminal motives like I need to feel secure and successful. And they use projective techniques, word association, picture interpretation to try and uncover these deeper motives that we can't articulate rationally.
The Chrysler PT Cruiser story is a perfect illustration of this.
It really is. When they asked consumers rationally what they wanted in a new car, they got the expected boring answers. Gas mileage, safety, a reasonable price.
But the Freudian-style research, where interviewers acted as visitors from another planet who knew nothing about cars, uncovered the underlying code.
And that code was that the unconscious belief among many car buyers was that mass-market sedans were cookie-cutter and off-code. They were predictable and boring.
So the insight was that consumers didn't just want transportation. They wanted a car with personality that signaled their unique identity.
And the distinctive retro PT Cruiser design resulted directly from that insight. It went on to be one of the most successful car launches in recent history because it tapped into that unstated desire.
The second classic theory is Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Right. Needs arranged in a hierarchy from most to least pressing. Physiological, safety, social esteem, and finally, self-actualization.
The implication for marketers is critical. You can't sell a luxury trip to the Himalayas, a self-actualization product, to someone struggling to meet their safety needs, like finding stable housing.
You satisfy the most pressing need first. A starving man ignores art news. His most salient need is food. Simple as that.
And the third theory is Herzberg's two-factor theory, which makes a vital distinction between dissatisfiers and satisfiers. Let's break this down.
Absolutely. So think about owning a car. The dissatisfiers are factors that cause dissatisfaction if they're missing, like a poor warranty, bad customer service, or constant breakdowns. These must be avoided or they will kill the sale.
But avoiding those doesn't make you love your car. It just means you don't hate it.
Exactly. Not having a flat tire on your commute doesn't make you love your car. That's just meeting the minimum expectation. Only the presence of satisfiers like an amazing sound system, incredible comfort, or quick acceleration will actually motivate the purchase.
So the key takeaway is, avoiding dissatisfiers won't sell a product, but they will easily unsell it.
You need both, but the satisfiers are what create desire.
So a motivated person is ready to act, but how they act is entirely filtered through perception. And our sources are very clear. Perception is often more important than objective reality in marketing.
Because it dictates actual behavior. If you perceive a brand as high quality, that is your reality. Perception is the process of selecting, organizing, and interpreting information to create a meaningful picture of the world.
And because we're exposed to over 1,500 communications a day, our brains can't process everything. So we use three key perceptual filters.
The first is selective attention. We just screen most stimuli out. We're most likely to notice stimuli that, 1, relate to a current need.
Like seeing computer ads when you need a computer.
Right. Or 2, stimuli we anticipate. Or 3, stimuli with large deviations from the norm, like a $100 off offer versus $5 off.
The second is selective distortion, which is the tendency to interpret information in a way that fits our existing preconceptions. This is where it gets really interesting.
This is where that incredible blind taste test anecdote comes in.
I mean, this is astonishing.
It is. In blind taste tests, groups invariably have dramatically different reported experiences when one group knows the brand they're consuming, even though the product is physical identical.
So if you believe a strong brand is better, You will subconsciously distort neutral or ambiguous information positively.
The coffee seems to taste better. The car seems to drive smoother. This distortion works heavily to the advantage of strong, established brands.
We are literally changing sensory reality based on a label. If a strong brand messes up slightly, a loyal consumer is likely to overlook it or even spin it positively.
Exactly. And the third process is selective retention. We forget most of the information we're exposed to, but we selectively retain information that supports our existing attitudes and beliefs.
We remember the good points about a product we like and forget the good points about competitors.
Which explains why marketers need message repetition. They have to keep repeating the message to overcome selective retention and make sure it sticks.
And speaking of that, we have to address the perpetual fascination with subliminal perception. The idea that marketers embed covert messages in ads or stores.
Right, like fleeting images or low-volume audio tracks. It's an idea that has fascinated the public for decades.
So what's the verdict?
Well, the scientific consensus is overwhelmingly clear. While our mental processes certainly include subtle subconscious effects, there is no evidence that marketers can systematically control consumer behavior at this level enough to change deeply held beliefs or force a purchase. You can't make someone buy a new car with a subliminal message. Hashtag 2.3 learning in memory.
Okay, moving on to learning. Learning is simply a change in behavior arising from experience. Every experience we have with a product, good or bad, changes our future behavior.
We learn to generalize. If your HP computer was good, you generalize that HP also makes good printers. And conversely, we learn to discriminate, recognizing differences between similar products, which is how we break brand loyalty.
There's also a powerful psychological quirk here called the hedonic bias.
Ah, yes. The tendency to attribute success to oneself, but blame product failure on external causes.
So if the product is amazing and I use it perfectly, it's because I chose well.
But if it breaks, it's clearly the manufacturer's fault or the instructions were unclear. It's human nature, and this puts immense pressure on marketers to provide absolutely clear instructions and packaging to minimize the chance for consumers to externalize the blame.
And we can't discuss consumer response without talking about emotions. It's not all rational. A huge portion is purely emotional.
We see this with brands making deliberate shifts. Tempur-Pedic mattresses famously use infomercials showing wine glasses not spilling a functional benefit.
And they later shifted entirely to an emotional approach.
Positioning themselves as a wellness brand providing nighttime therapy for body and mind, they were selling relaxation and health, not just stability.
Similarly, in the detergent category, brands like Tide tapped into the emotional connection people have with their clothes.
Instead of focusing only on cleaning performance, they focused on preserving clothes. Tide Total Care focused on keeping the 7 signs of beautiful clothes, appealing to the desire to keep garments looking fabulous and new.
It was a shift from functional cleaner to emotional guardian.
And it was incredibly effective.
Finally, let's look at memory. We have short-term memory, which is temporary and limited, and long-term memory, which is permanent and unlimited.
And the structure of long-term memory is often seen as an associative network model. It's composed of nodes stored information, like the color red or the word dependable, and links, which are the connections between those nodes.
And a key concept for branding is the brand association.
It's the cluster of thoughts, feelings, perceptions, and images linked to the brand node in our memory. Marketers use mental maps to analyze the strength and organization of these brand beliefs.
The hypothetical State Farm map in the sources is a great illustration. The core brand node is linked to associations like dependable, good reputation, red color, and agents being good neighbors.
If those links are strong, the brand is successful. Marketers spend fortunes trying to create and reinforce the right strong associations.
And to make sure their ideas stick, our sources dive into the Made to Stick framework.
Wow.
It uses the acronym CTCE.
Right. Simple, unexpected, concrete, credibility, emotion, and stories. These are the 6 traits of great, memorable ideas.
Concrete ideas are easy to remember because they're physically tangible.
Look at the design goal given to Boeing's 727 engineers. The plane had to seat 131 passengers, fly New York to Miami nonstop, and land on LaGuardia's specific short runway 422. That specific, concrete constraint made the design challenge real and memorable.
And credibility is built through specific, often unexpected actions.
The Indian delivery service Safe Express overcame doubts by flawlessly delivering 69,000 copies of the latest Harry Potter novel to bookstores all over the country by 8 a.m. on release morning. That demonstrated undeniable credibility.
But the best example that hits all six CCES dimensions is the Jared Subway weight loss story.
It's perfect. It's simple. Lose weight eating subs. It was unexpected. Fast food weight loss. It was concrete, 2 subs daily. It had high credibility, documented 100-pound loss. It was full of emotion, triumph over weight problems. And it was a powerful story.
That acronym is useful, but 6 criteria seem like a lot to hit simultaneously. Which of those 6 do you think is the hardest for a modern marketer to achieve? Credibility seems especially tough in an era of distrust.
That's an insightful challenge. While credibility is vital, I'd argue the hardest is often unexpectedness. In a world of 1,500 daily communications, truly breaking the pattern and surprising the consumer, not just shocking them, but giving them an insight they genuinely didn't see coming, is incredibly difficult.
That makes perfect sense. It's a masterful use of leveraging memory and narrative. Okay, we're transitioning now to section 3, the rational model.
Okay.
This is the 5-stage blueprint for how consumers are supposed to make decisions, the idealized view.
Though we should admit upfront that we often skip or reverse stages, especially for habitual, low-involvement purchases like toothpaste. But for big-ticket items, a car, a home, it remains the foundational structure for marketers to analyze.
So the first stage is problem recognition. The need or problem is triggered either internally, like hunger, or externally, like seeing a friend's new car.
For discretionary purchases, marketers must work hard to actively trigger that recognition and increase consumer motivation.
Stage 2 is information search. And when the need is moderate, consumers often search for surprisingly limited amounts of information.
It's true. Studies suggest that half of all consumers look at only one store when shopping for an appliance. It really counters the idea of the perfectly informed buyer.
And we distinguish between 2 search levels. First, heightened attention, where you just become receptive to information. Second, active information search, where you go out and read, phone, visit online forums.
And we tap into 4 key information sources. Personal sources, like friends and family, are the most effective for evaluation. Commercial sources, like ads and websites, provide the highest volume of information.
Then you have public sources, like consumer reports, which are seen as independent authorities, and experiential sources, like a test drive.
As the consumer searches, they filter down the available options using the concept of successive sets.
Okay, break that down for us.
You start with the total set of all brands available. You know a small subset of these, the awareness set. Only some of those meet your initial criteria. That's your consideration set. You gather more information, and just a few remain, the choice set. And your final decision comes from that small choice set.
This filtering process leads to market partitioning, identifying the hierarchy of attributes consumers use.
Right. Do you decide based on the manufacturer first, a brand-dominant hierarchy, or based on country of origin, first a nation-dominant hierarchy?
This partitioning matters right down to the store shelf, as we saw with that unique Australian supermarket example.
Yeah, they often arrange meat, by the way it might be cooked, a 10-minute herbed beef roast, or grill-ready lamb chops. They prioritize the function, the outcome.
Whereas we, as U.S. shoppers, typically choose by animal-type beef, chicken, pork.
Exactly. The Australian approach encourages a greater variety of purchases. The U.S. approach reinforces existing habits. Marketers have to know whether the consumer is price-dominant, type-dominant, or brand-dominant in their filtering.
Stage 3 is where the consumer processes brand information to make a value judgment. This is driven by beliefs, descriptive thoughts, and attitudes enduring evaluations.
And attitudes are notoriously difficult to change, so companies are usually advised to fit their product into existing positive attitudes.
But sometimes attitudes are so negative that decisive action is necessary. We mentioned Domino's Pizza earlier.
Their campaign was a masterclass in high-risk marketing. They launched an ad campaign that opened with actual customer feedback, vicious comments like, "The pizza crust is like cardboard and the sauce tastes like ketchup."
An incredible admission of failure. The CEO publicly stated these results were unacceptable.
They didn't try to spin it. They admitted past inferiority and relaunched with a new, improved formulation. It was a decisive, honest effort to confront widely held negative beliefs.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of how this evaluation happens, starting with the expectancy value model. This is the classic compensatory model.
Meaning, perceived good things about a product can compensate or overcome perceived bad things. Consumers evaluate brands by combining beliefs about attributes according to their importance weight.
Let's use the laptop math example, but let's simplify it. We have Linda, choosing between laptops based on 4 weighted attributes.
Yeah.
Memory at 40%, graphics at 30%, size weight at 20%, and price at 10%.
Imagine laptop A. It's strong on memory and graphics, which are most important to Linda, but it's a little weak on size weight.
When you calculate the score, laptop A achieves a perceived value of 8.0.
So even though it was slightly weak in one area, its strengths in the 2 most important attributes compensated for that weakness. That is why it's called a compensatory model. The weighted positives outweigh the weighted negatives.
And knowing this, marketers have 6 paths to influence the process. They can physically change the product or just change beliefs about the product.
They can attack the competition's beliefs, alter the consumer's importance weights, call attention to a neglected attribute, or try to shift the buyer's ultimate ideal. All 6 aim to manipulate the weights and ratings in that math model.
The last 2 stages are the purchase and post-purchase phases. But before we get to the purchase, we have to recognize the constant use of non-compensatory models or heuristics mental shortcuts.
Right, and here positive features do not compensate for negatives.
So what are the key heuristics?
First, the conjunctive heuristic. You choose the first alternative that meets a minimum acceptable cutoff for all attributes. If Linda decided she must have a minimum score of 5 on everything and laptop B was the first one to hit all those minimums, she'd choose it immediately and stop searching.
Second, the lexicographic heuristic.
Choosing the best brand based solely on the most important attribute. If memory capacity is her absolute most important attribute, she would immediately choose laptop C, which is rated 10 on memory, ignoring all other factors.
And the third is elimination by aspects,
where you compare attributes sequentially and eliminate brands that fall below the cutoff as you go.
These shortcuts completely overturn the rational model. The success of the Intel Inside campaign was that it made the microprocessor the critical first cutoff for many PC buyers.
If it didn't have Intel Inside, it was immediately eliminated. It forced manufacturers to cooperate.
And even after forming a purchase intention, 2 intervening factors can still derail the actual purchase. First, the attitudes of others.
If a spouse or a trusted friend intensely dislikes your choice, the influence can be strong.
And related to this are independent sources like intermediaries and buzz.
Think Consumer Reports or J.D. Power and online reviews. Consumers are heavily influenced by these, especially when risk is high.
The $15,000 budget horror movie Paranormal Activity grossed over $100 million.
The phenomenal success that was entirely due to riding a massive wave of favorable word-of-mouth and online buzz. It proves independent opinion is often more potent than any advertising budget.
The second major intervening factor is unanticipated situational factors. Losing a job, a rude salesperson.
And we can't forget perceived risk, which heavily influences the decision. Our sources detail 6 types: functional, physical, financial, social, psychological, and time risk. Marketers must provide guarantees and trials to reduce these risks.
Finally, we reach post-purchase behavior. Satisfaction is the gap between expectations and perceived performance.
If it falls short, you're disappointed. If it meets or exceeds, you're satisfied or even delighted.
And dissatisfaction links to post-purchase actions, either private actions like never buying again or warning friends, or public actions like complaining to the company.
Savvy companies use post-purchase communications, like congratulating new computer owners, to reduce returns and cancellations.
Marketers also monitor post-purchase uses and disposal. The consumption rate is a key driver of sales.
Companies actively try to speed this up with subtle cues. Oral-B ties toothbrush promotions to daylight savings time. Batteries have built-in gauges. Toothbrushes have color indicators that fade over time.
These are all subtle nudges to speed up the replacement cycle.
And the disposal phase itself creates massive product opportunities. Savers resells 2.5 billion pounds of used clothing annually. And the way products are manufactured also matters. Pringles converts the whole potato into dehydrated flakes, minimizing waste.
Okay, we've established the external world, the psychological filters, and the idealized 5-stage process. Now we must confront the final reality. Section 4. When consumers go off-road.
This is where we admit the rational model is often more theory than practice. Behavioral decision theory and behavioral economics completely challenge the notion that consumers are purely rational. They confirm we are constructive decision makers who rely heavily on mental shortcuts.
So the first major deviation is low involvement. The elaboration likelihood model describes how we evaluate things differently depending on our interest level.
High-involvement consumers use the central route, diligent, rational consideration of the product's most important features. They need motivation, ability, and opportunity.
This is the expectancy value model in action.
But if motivation or ability is lacking, which is often the case for cheap, frequent purchases like cereal or paper towels, consumers use the peripheral route. They rely on cues like celebrity endorsers, appealing packaging, or repetition. We buy many of these items out of sheer habit.
And marketers are constantly trying to raise involvement to shift consumers from the peripheral to the central route.
They try 4 key methods. Link the product to an engaging issue, like cavities. Link it to a personal situation, like adding vitamins to juice, trigger strong emotions, or add an important unexpected feature.
But if involvement stays low, the peripheral route is dominant. So marketers have to use strong positive cues, repetition, sponsorships, emotionally appealing packaging.
The second deviation is variety seeking. This is brand switching for the sake of difference, not dissatisfaction.
Like with cookies, you might like your current brand, but you switch to a different one just because you're bored and want novelty.
Market leaders in these categories want to encourage habit by dominating shelf space and using reminder ads. Challengers want to break that cycle by offering deals and coupons to get you to try something new. Hashtag 4.2 decision heuristics and biases.
Beyond low involvement, we rely on various cognitive decision heuristics, rules of thumb, to make decisions quickly, often leading to predictable biases.
First, the availability heuristic, basing predictions on the quickness and ease with which an example comes to mind. If you recently heard about a washing machine failure causing a flood, you're likely to inflate your perception of future product failure.
Which makes you far more likely to buy an expensive product warranty.
Exactly. The recent story anchors your perception. Second, the representativeness heuristic, basing predictions on how similar the outcome is to other known examples. This explains why brands in the same category often look so similar in packaging.
They want their product to look representative of the highest quality standards of the category.
Third, the anchoring and adjustment heuristic, arriving at an initial judgment, the anchor, and adjusting later. A strong, positive first impression is critical because it sets a favorable anchor.
And the field of behavioral economics provides systematic evidence that our irrationality is, paradoxically, predictable.
This is where people systematically overestimate their chances of a good outcome, a successful marriage, financial security, and underestimate the chances of a bad one. This optimism bias is pervasive and explains why people might underinvest in insurance or retirement planning.
And the lure of free is irresistible. The famous Hershey Kisses Lindt truffle experiment shows this perfectly.
It does. When Lindt truffles were 15 cents and Hershey Kisses were 1 cent, a large majority chose the superior truffle.
But when the price was cut by just 1 cent to 14 cents for the truffles and free for the kisses, the majority instantly switched to the free kisses.
Even though the truffle at 14 cents was objectively still a significantly better deal. The word free changes the mental calculus entirely. It moves the product into a different, irresistible category. Hashtag 4.3 framing and mental accounting.
The systematic way choices are presented, or decision framing, dramatically influences our choice. A $200 phone seems less expensive when it's framed next to a set of $400 phones.
This leads directly to choice architecture, structuring the decision environment to provide a calculated nudge that alters behavior without coercion. Nabisco's 100-calorie snack packs are a perfect example, nudging consumers toward portion control.
And perhaps the most fascinating bias is mental accounting. This is how we code, categorize, and evaluate financial outcomes. We don't treat all dollars equally.
The classic Richard Thaler example is the concert ticket loss scenario. If you buy a $50 ticket in advance and lose it, most people are reluctant to buy another one. It feels like they spent $100 for the show.
However, if you lose $50 in cash on the way to the show and haven't bought the ticket yet, most people will still buy the ticket.
That concert ticket thing gets me every time. I can totally see myself refusing to buy a second ticket, even though logically the loss is the same $50.
It's because in the first case, buying the second ticket exceeded the mental concert budget. In the second case, the lost cash didn't belong to any specific account, so the concert budget remained mentally intact.
Richard Thaler outlines 4 core principles of mental accounting from this. 1. Segregate gains. List multiple product benefits separately so the sum of the gains seems greater.
2. Integrate losses. Add a product's cost to a large purchase, like a house, so the addition feels less painful.
3. Integrate small losses with larger gains. Withholding taxes from paychecks is less aversive than writing a lump sum check to the government.
And 4. Segregate small gains from large losses. The silver lining principle, like offering a rebate on a new car.
These are all rooted in prospect theory, which states that we are generally deeply loss-averse. A loss hurts more than an equivalent gain pleases, and we tend to overweight low probabilities.
It's the perfect synthesis of why we are so often predictably irrational.
We've charted the comprehensive journey of the consumer from deep cultural influences through psychological filters, detailing the rational five-stage path, and finally into the surprising shortcuts and systematic biases that govern our decisions daily.
And the great brands succeed not because they rely on the rational model, but because they are masters of applying this deep knowledge of human behavior. IKEA and Disney are two excellent examples.
IKEA is a classic master of addressing the money-constrained consumer while cleverly tapping into behavioral acceptance. They offer leading-edge design at low prices, but this is predicated on the customer performing the labor, traveling to the store and assembling the furniture.
This works perfectly for that thrift-minded segment. They accept the effort, the loss of time and energy, in exchange for a significant financial gain. This is the IKEA effect, where you value the item more because you built it yourself.
And crucially, they master local adaptation. When they realized U.S. shoppers were buying vases as drinking glasses because the regular glasses were too small, they developed larger glasses for the U.S. market. They adapted their global model to fit local habits perfectly.
And Disney, on the other hand, is a 90-year-old brand that maintains relevance through a delicate balance of heritage and relentless innovation. CEO Bob Iger calls it the Disney difference.
They use their multiple interconnected business segments, studios, parks, media networks, to maximize cross-platform franchises and deeply immerse consumers in their world. Our sources estimate consumers spend a staggering 13 billion hours immersed with the Disney brand each year.
The Hannah Montana franchise is the blueprint for this immersion. It moves seamlessly from a TV show to CDs, video games, movies, and live performances, leveraging their networks and parks to touch consumers in every possible way.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? We've seen that our decisions are often predictably irrational, driven by heuristics, emotions, and cultural assumptions we don't even realize we carry.
And the challenge for marketers is no longer if consumers will use mental shortcuts, but how these systematic biases can be anticipated and navigated to genuinely serve needs better.
And for you, the consumer, the challenge is this. Can you spot the difference between an emotionally charged decision based on peripheral cues, the excitement of a brand's personality, or the lure of free and a truly rational one?
Think about the mental accounting we discussed. What are your most firmly held mental accounts? Your specific budgets for categories like travel, hobbies, or fashion, and why? Once you identify those, you can begin to understand the complex, fascinating machine that drives your own consumption choices.